welcome back to Post Credit Podcast, the place for you to go to for all your movie needs after the credits roll. My name is Preston Moore. As always, I am joined by my co-host Raymond Vanuya. Raymond, say hi.
What's up, guys?
All right. We have a lot of exciting stuff to get into today. A lot of stuff happened in the past week since we've last talked. The biggest thing that happened was the Joker reviews. Joker is a movie that is coming out next month, and it premiered at the Venice Film Festival, and it got an 8-minute standing ovation. So we're going to talk all about that. And also, the second teaser for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker was released, featuring an Evil Rey. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. But before we get into any of that, let's talk about what we have watched in the past week. Raymond, I'll let you go first.
All right, so my first thing, I feel bad as someone who enjoys watching film and television just because, you always have to finish something to really give your opinion, but this is the first time I've really seen a show, and I was just like, I have no issue with dropping this halfway through, and I just can't finish it because, it felt that horrible. 13 Reasons Why, Season 3. Oh, man. I really tried to get through it. I really did. And I really enjoyed, well, for lack of a better term, I really appreciated the filmmaking in the first season. The second season was okay. I thought it was more just, all right, let's wrap up this story. And then they leave you with the cliffhanger that you're just like, oh, okay, well, maybe there's more to this. And then Season 3 is just kind of like, yeah, I kind of got lost. Was the cliffhanger, it's supposed to be this big deal. And then, I thought that's what would be going on. But I feel like it's just so brushed under the rug. It's just so... I can't even begin to explain the way, I guess, that I can just say with this show. It turned into 13 Reasons Why SVU, and it was just the black and white interview thing. Just I was like, are you what? I was so confused. But all I can say is it's pretty much a mess, and for me, it becomes so over dramatic, and I'm just like, oh man, I might as well just be watching a soap opera. But
I saw a video on Twitter where they literally included not included, but they wrote into the script a Squarespace ad, essentially, the website developing site. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. I don't know.
Clay makes a website and he's like, no, I just use Squarespace, and it was just ultra cheesy.
It's cringe. That's the thing about it too. They have a real opportunity here to be talking about some serious issues, and that's what I thought that's what was going to be going on in this season. But no, it turns into just this very overly dramatic, kind of far out there show, and you're just like, what just happened? That's just I can't really explain more than that without spoiling it for anybody that has any desire left to watch this show. But I would not recommend it.
I watched and I enjoyed Season 1. Now, do I think Season 1 should have been made at all? No, because they've taken it out since then, but they took it out 2 years after the fact. They included a lot of things in Season 1 that they shouldn't have included. So I think that it was just really not something that should have been made in the first place, because it didn't really... They masked it, I think. They masked it under the whole we're making this for suicide prevention thing, when in reality, they were doing it for entertainment. And Season 1 was very entertaining, but to anyone who may be having suicidal thoughts, if they were to watch Season 1 the way it was originally released, they may see how it generally glorifies suicide. Like Hannah Baker is seen like this she's glorified throughout the entire season. You know what I mean? So I don't think it should have been made, but from an entertainment standpoint, it was entertaining, that very first season. I tried to watch Season 2, and the writing was so bad that I quit. So
yeah, I was able to stick through Season 2, but yeah, Season 3, that's how I got. I was like, yep, I'm out. Sorry. SpongeBob bean. Alright, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah.
What have you been watching, man?
So I don't know if I mentioned it last week. I think I mentioned it a little bit, but not fully. Recently, I finished Euphoria on HBO, starring Zendaya, and that, I mean, wow, just wow. I mean, that show. I really think that Euphoria season 1 may be my favorite season of television since Daredevil season 3. It really was spectacular. It was one of the best things I've seen in a very long time, and a lot of that is because of the characters, the way that they write their characters on that show. Everything is very meticulously crafted, and you can tell that they put a lot of heart into every character and not just their main characters. Even, the side characters are very fleshed out, and they're not just like plot points, for the main characters to go along with their story. Everyone in the show has a story, and you watched half of it, right?
Yeah, I have.
So you understand it a little bit. I mean, I'm sure you've been able to see like the way that these characters are so well crafted.
Oh yeah,
but
I mean, go on.
If you've seen the show, you'll know who I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the show, go watch it. But one of my favorite characters in the show, his name is Fez, and he's a drug dealer. And when you first see him, I mean, he's a likable character. He doesn't stand out very much, but the thing is when you watch his performance, this actor's performance, it may seem uninspired or just kind of bland at first, but when you really think about it, I feel like his performance throughout, and obviously I know you haven't seen the whole thing, but I mean, not a whole lot changes in terms of his performance and anything, but throughout it really does. It's a really good performance, is what I'll say, because his lines, although it may seem like his delivery for his lines is kind of dry or not really just bland.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that is his character. His character isn't outspoken per se, and his character is just like super chill, like always, high or whatever. And I don't know. I think it was really fascinating to me the way that his character was portrayed and how it kind of looked at some points to seem like a bad performance, but when you look deeper into it, it was actually a really, really good performance. And that goes for the entire show. Everybody, all the actors, the entire cast was spectacular in my opinion. But yeah, Euphoria season 1, loved it. It was incredible. Yeah. What else have you been watching?
Well, there's this other one that I watched on Netflix, and it's actually that David Letterman interview show, and it's actually really interesting. I watched one episode, and it was the episode he had with Kanye, and I just love the way how he interviews them. I think a lot of that is kind of, we don't really see a lot of that anymore, just because we don't really have the patience sometimes to watch interviews. It's not something that's a big deal, I feel like, as much. We kind of just take the tidbits, the little Easter eggs people drop from interviews, the
highlights.
Yeah. But it's really interesting to see David Letterman just dive into the mind of Kanye and his other guests, and I just love that he really talks about his art. And Kanye, I mean, Kanye is such a polarizing character. He talks about his inspirations and his own family, and he opens up about his mental health problems that have recently surfaced, and he talks about being yourself, and just that's what I came away with it at the end of it all. Was it's really about being yourself, and I feel like that's what I enjoyed about his interview with him. It wasn't him trying to argue with him about his antics or political views or et cetera, et cetera. It was really about him trying to understand him and trying to get to know what makes Kanye Kanye. And for me, I feel like it was just very, almost in a way, enlightening. And it was just really refreshing to see some wholesome content from someone so outspoken. But I definitely go recommend it. I'm still trying to watch the rest of the episodes because he has some really good guests on there, and obviously David Letterman is a great interviewer. You know, he has Ellen DeGeneres on there. He's had Barack Obama on there. So I definitely recommend it to go for anybody to go see it. And what
Yeah.
else? What else have you been watching, Preston?
Okay, I wanna talk about this one for a little bit of time because I saw this movie yesterday and I kind of just saw it on a whim. I had like a couple free hours. I was like, I don't have anywhere to be until then. I'm next to this really nice theater that I like to go to a lot. I'm gonna just go see it real quick. And I looked for a couple different movies that I was interested in seeing, and I didn't. None of them were showing at the time that I wanted. I thought about seeing Spider-Man: Far From Home extended cut, but I wasn't really interested in that because they didn't add a whole lot, and anyways. But I thought about seeing that, and then I also thought about going to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood again because that is a film that I really, really did enjoy, that I've been wanting to rewatch. And then I also thought about seeing this new movie called Don't Let Go that released recently that looks really good, but ultimately none of those were playing at the time that I could go see him. So I picked the movie that had the closest start time to that I could just watch. And I think I saw maybe like one tweet about it, maybe, like total before going into it. I really had no idea what this movie was about, who was in it, anything about it. I didn't know a thing. But I went in and it came out. I mean, I loved it. This movie is in my top 5 of 2019. It's called The Peanut Butter Falcon. And if you haven't heard about this movie, trust me, you're not alone because I hadn't heard about it, and I don't think many people have because not many people are talking about it
until now.
It's a bit of a smaller film. It's not even showing in some theaters, some towns. I know a guy, friend of mine on Twitter, said that he didn't even have it in his town, and I was like, it's worth traveling for. Go see it. If it's only like 30-45 minute drive that's far away, go see the movie. Like, it's really spectacular. So this movie, essentially, it revolves around two characters. The first of which is kind of, I don't know, I don't think either of them are the main character, but the story kind of revolves around the two of them. And the first of which, his name is Zach. He's a Down syndrome person. He's 22 years old, and he's been put in a nursing home because he doesn't have any family to take care of him, and he doesn't know what to do, but he hates being in the nursing home. He is young, he wants to go live, but he has no one to take care of him, so he's stuck in this nursing home and he hates it. And then the second is this guy named Tyler, and he works fishing crab, I think. Essentially, he's a fisherman. And this is Shia LaBeouf's character. Shia LaBeouf, by the way, still got it. I think he may be nominated for an Oscar for this movie because
Jeez,
he was
that's bold, man.
he was spectacular. He was spectacular. I absolutely loved him in this movie. But I digress. Shia LaBeouf's character is named Tyler. He's this fisherman. He's kind of hardened because his brother died years ago. It's revealed early in the movie that his brother passed away, and this Tyler character is pretty hardened. He is illegally fishing for crab on land that isn't his, and he's made a lot of enemies in his community, and he really doesn't have a whole lot to live for at the beginning of the movie, it seems. And throughout the course of events in this movie, Zach and Tyler, the Down syndrome kid from the nursing home, and Tyler, the fisherman, they meet up, and they essentially become what each of them needed, in a sense. They collide just out of sheer happenstance, and then throughout, as the movie goes along, they kind of save each other's lives in a way because neither of them were in a really good place, and they're both just really good for each other. And I don't know if I have smiled so much in a movie ever in my life. Because, I mean, this movie is pure joy and just so much heart on the screen. Like, I can't even put into words how many times I was just feeling so joyful just watching the movie. Like, it's so heartwarming. If I had to pick one word to describe the Peanut Butter Falcon, I would say heartwarming, because that's exactly what it is. It's a heartwarming movie. These two guys, they go on an adventure together, essentially. There's a couple other actors in the fray. Obviously, we have Shia LaBeouf is in. Also, John Bernthal makes kind of a cameo role. He's in a very small role, but he's in the movie. He shows up, and Dakota Johnson as well plays a main character, and Thomas Hayden Church, who is he played. I recognized him from, he was the Sandman in Spider-Man 3. Oh, he's in this movie. Yeah, I hadn't seen him in like anything. So yeah, it's got a solid cast. And then the actor who plays Zach, his name is Zach Gottsagen. Gottsagen? I don't know how to say it. But yeah, it's one of, I've seen 28 movies in 2019 thus far. I hope I can see more. I planned on seeing more. But I've seen 28 movies in 2019, and I've given 6 of them 5-star ratings, and this was easily a 5-star rating. I really, really loved it. It was just, like I said, the most fun that I've had in a theater in a long time. If you get the chance, this movie is only an hour and a half long. I think it's actually an hour and 29 minutes. So, really short movie. If you have like 2 free hours, you can squeeze it in. And if it's showing where you are, go see it. I was happy to see that a lot of people, like my theater that I saw it in was very full. And I was very happy to see that because it was like a 4 p.m. showing and it's a small movie. So I was happy to see that there were a lot of people there to see it. It's really good. It's really funny. It's got a lot of heart, and I don't have enough good things to say about it. So definitely, it's called The Peanut Butter Falcon. Go see it. That's my review. Raymond, you should go see it too. You're included.
I will, man. I mean, Shia LaBeouf in a serious role, I mean, that sounds really good. I mean, I love Shia LaBeouf just as a person. I mean,
yeah.
But for his entire story, though, he's been through a lot. But I'd love to see him return to, some glory here with a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a very eccentric person, and I think I was surprised to see him in this role because I really hadn't seen him in a whole lot other than Holes from back in the day.
You didn't watch Transformers?
And Transformers, those two.
And then
he was really...
Eye. That was a good one.
Yeah. But, I mean, in Holes, because I grew up, I loved Holes. And Holes was kind of like he was kind of a child star then, he was really young, a teenager. And then Transformers, like he's in his young 20s, really like probably just an actor doing what he can to take the biggest roles he can, you know what I mean? To get his name out there and establish himself, I feel like.
Yeah.
Obviously, then he became the Shia LaBeouf that we know and love now, who is very interesting person, very eccentric is the only word that I can think of to accurately describe him. But he plays a very serious role in this movie, and he's spectacular. He's so good. And it was weird when I saw him because he plays this grown man, and I was so used to him being either in Holes, the young teenager, or in Transformers, like the young, good-looking, like action movie star,
Yeah, even like in Indiana Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, and in this movie, he's this weathered, like in his 30s at least, big beard, like I don't know. He just looked very differently and acted very differently. He's this big country guy. He's got this big country accent. He's just very stern and harsh most of the time. And I was really, really impressed. It showed his range a lot because I had never seen him in anything like that, and he killed it. I was, like I said, I don't have enough good things to say about it. Go see the movie, The Peanut Butter Falcon. So freaking good. Raymond, is there anything else you've seen lately?
Yeah, this one's a short one. So for anyone who's into more electro and like EDM music, you should watch the short film Saga 2. It's from this artist called Memba, and they're part of this production company called Foreign Family, but it's basically this like 13-minute short film where this like object relic thing comes to Earth, and it interconnects the stories of a bunch of these different strangers, and for each of these different strangers' stories, it's like a different song. So it's also like almost an album, but it's obviously, yeah, it's 13 minutes. It's really short, but it's one of
Sounds
those.
like
Go for
I
it.
thought of Spider-Man 3 for some reason.
Honestly,
Because
like,
Venom
the
comes from
symbiote-
outer space, and then there's, there's a certain scene with a certain song. We don't have to get into it.
Oh
but...
man, it's a lot better than that scene from Spider-Man 3.
Okay, great.
But
Cool.
if you guys have seen Cloud Atlas from like the Wachowskis with Tom Hanks, it's a lot. It reminded me a lot of that, at least, just with really good music. I'll be honest, I still don't really understand it, and I think that's why I enjoy it so much. And they even just give you fair warning. You should watch this a couple times to really understand what's going on in this film. And for me, if you're a fan of those kind of movies, kind of like how I experienced like 2001: A Space Odyssey and Interstellar the first time, I had to watch it a few times to really get it. And I was like, then you'll enjoy this. So just throwing that out there to everybody. I can't explain it because I don't fully understand it, but I like it and I enjoy it. So 13 minutes of your time, you can knock that out.
That's how I was with Legion. Did you ever watch that?
No, I haven't.
FX. I watched the first season, and I really loved it. I never caught up and watched the rest, but Legion is very much like that, where you're like, I don't know what's going on. Like, my mind is being very twisted and, like, blown right now, but I like it. So, that's how I felt about that. So I understand where you're coming from. Speaking of mind-blowing things, I don't know if this is very mind-blowing, but it's cool. Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix, directed by Todd Phillips, the solo film centered around the clown prince of crime. That movie premiered at the Venice Film Festival this past week, and it drew in extremely high applause, great reviews. Like I mentioned at the beginning, there was an 8-minute long standing ovation after the film. Now, I know these film festivals have long standing ovations typically for good movies, but I mean, 8 minutes, that I can't imagine standing through that and clapping for anything that I've ever seen for that long. I don't know, maybe The Cat in the Hat, but that's it. But 8 minutes of clapping, so that's a lot. This movie, the reviews are generally really good. There have been a couple reviews saying that it's not very good, but most all the reviews have been saying that it is spectacular. So this looks like it could be a smash hit for Warner Brothers and DC. It releases October 4th. A lot of people are saying that Joaquin Phoenix is a shoo-in for Best Actor as his performance as Arthur Fleck or the Joker. I'm going to read off. Let's see. Let's read off of this. This review is from David Ehrlich from IndieWire. He said, Todd Phillips' Joker is unquestionably the boldest reinvention of superhero cinema since The Dark Knight, a true original that's sure to be remembered as one of the most transgressive studio blockbusters of the 21st century. Joker is the human-sized and adult-oriented comic book movie that Marvel critics have been clamoring for. There's no action, no spandex, no obvious visual effects, and the whole thing is so gritty and serious that DCEU fanboys will feel as if they've died and seen the Snyder Cut. But it's also the worst-case scenario for the rest of the film world, as it points toward a grim future in which the inmates have taken over the asylum, and even the most repulsive of mid-budget character studies can be massive hits and Oscar contenders, so long as they're at least tangentially related to some popular intellectual property. So a lot to unpack there, but what I really want to focus on is the obvious praise for this movie. I mean, he called it unquestionably the boldest reinvention of superhero cinema since The Dark Knight. That's crazy. I mean, that's huge, right? The Dark Knight was 11 years ago. I mean, I don't know, that's crazy. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he has a lot to say. It does sound, though, like we are finally getting the dark movie that everyone's wanted, which I'm excited about, but I'm not really surprised here, you know? For them to be, first of all, premiering this at film festivals, that really just has to show that it is more on that side of the spectrum of film, more so than a blockbuster, that they are really diving into the, I don't know what's the word to, I wouldn't say cinematic or more artsy, but in a sense, yeah, some of the, in a way, more Oscar-friendly territory of film. And I do think that this is interesting, too, that they're doing this with the Joker. And I agree with him. It does sound, whether or not, you know, I'm almost 100% sure that the movie's going to be good. But it does feel like a reinvention, at least, of superhero films and comic book movies in general, just because it is really starting to tread that territory of, we're not getting people to come watch our movies because we're getting to see the Joker do crazy stuff because it's the Joker. It's more now that, no, we're making a really, really good film that's character driven, has a great plot, and has the mechanics of a really good, long-lasting film. It just so happens to also be about the Joker. And I think it's really interesting, at least, and I'm excited for it. And I think the thing, too, that stands out to me is I love that he has to drop in there there's no obvious visual effects, because that is something I feel like we've touched on that. And even though it doesn't, like, more or less take away or add to a film, because if the film's good, it's good, whether it has green screen in it or not, I feel like there is a soft spot somewhere in there for me for films that are done on practical sets without crazy action sequences, without crazy green screen, and I appreciate that, at least.
Absolutely. I've been somewhat outspoken in the past about the way I feel about CGI and its uses, and when it is when it's useful and when it's unnecessary, you know. Mm-hmm. Todd Phillips, the director of this movie, said that there's not a single green screen in Joker, and that made me smile, because I just love the idea that it's purely a film. Like, there's no, obviously maybe they will use some CGI. Frankly, I'm not sure where they would, given the story in itself, but you know, I love the idea that there's not a single green screen. I just love practical sets, practical effects. There's, like you said, there's more of a draw, you know. I've talked before about a comparison between Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man Far From Home. When you look at Avengers Endgame, this is a massive, I mean, you think about that one shot, essentially, where it's got all of the entire Marvel heroes, the entire universe, running after Thanos' army. And it's this massive all-out war. It's an epic conclusion, you know. That movie needed CGI to be what it was. Can we agree on that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's no way you could achieve that to that level without some sort of CGI.
You're not going to make an actually, like, whatever, 80-foot-tall Ant-Man, giant man running with Iron Man flying up above. I mean, it's not possible. So they needed CGI to make that what it was. And I appreciate that. And obviously you look at Thanos, that may be the best, some of the best CGI ever is the CGI on Thanos. He throughout Infinity War and Endgame, like, that CGI doesn't happen. Like, you don't make Thanos with practical effects. They did it the way they had to do it with CGI, and they did it super, super well, and it blended well. Obviously, you know it's CGI, but at the end of the day, you don't really notice a whole lot as much as you could if it was bad, right? So CGI like that is in my opinion, it's good because it creates in Endgame specifically. It created this epic conclusion, this epic battle that would not have been able to been created without the CGI. But then you look at Spider-Man Far From Home, and obviously, like Mysterio, you need CGI to make Mysterio, duh, or any of his illusions, because I mean they literally are illusions. It
that was literally a part of his character. Yeah, I was about to say that.
Yeah, no, that fits in the part of his movie. But there's a scene where Nick Fury shoots Ned with the tranquilizer gun, and he's hiding in Peter's room. That scene, Nick Fury's gun was CGI, as was the background and the room around him was all CGI. That usage of green screen and of CGI, I don't like as much. That is a product of the way that they rush these Marvel films out so quickly and so fast that it became, to where they had to CGI a gun in instead of just using a prop, or CGI the back of a room in instead of just going to a practical set. I mean, it's not hard to film in just a room. I mean, it was literally just a room. Go to a hotel room, film there, So that's where I think, sometimes CGI is good, sometimes it's unnecessary. Now I will say, watching the movie, it wasn't bad CGI. I couldn't tell that it was a CGI gun or room. I just didn't like so much the idea that they used it whenever that's something that doesn't need to be CGI. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So going back to Joker, to hear that Joker doesn't use a single green screen, that's exciting to me, because in this day and age where we are seeing so many, I mean, Marvel, you look at Marvel, that's the main example of it. But these massive blockbusters are using more and more CGI to create more and more surrealism. And while I do enjoy the surrealism at times, like in Endgame and in Infinity War, there are times when it's nice to just know that it was just practical set. Like, this is just, they filmed it, they edited it, and then they put it up, and that's it, So, I don't know. I really appreciate that there's not a whole lot of
green screen
in Joker.
Yeah.
If any at all. I'm very excited for that.
No, I definitely am too, but there is one review that stuck out to me a little bit. It's from The Wrap, and obviously this is just a part of the quote, but for me it just made me chuckle. It was, if you strip the Joker and his nearly 80-year history as a cultural icon out of this film, as well as the 1970s movie homages, there's not a whole lot left except for Phoenix's performance, and it's the kind of turn that's destined to be divisive. Or, I don't know, for me I'm just like, that's a little funny, man. It's like, if you strip the Joker of being the Joker for 80 years and just take out all his context, then you have a movie. I'm like, what do you want from me, man? I mean, it's a movie about the Joker. I don't know what to tell you.
If you strip the movie Joker of the Joker, then you don't have the Joker.
You have a movie about a really sad clown. But
yeah. We live in a society.
Sometimes it's hard for me with these critics, because you gotta admit, there are some critics, and clearly, they've made a profession out of it, but there's some critiques they give out that I'm like, wait, what? Are you serious, man?
Yeah, right.
But
I've seen a lot of complaints. Well, not a lot. The main complaint that I've seen about Joker is that it may not be suitable for this day and age, saying essentially the way the plot goes, the way that the story is, it may not be suitable for this day and age, in that some people could take it the wrong way and it could cause violence to occur. Now, that is the most ridiculous criticism I've ever heard, because first of all, I mean, that is not a critique of Joker. That should be a critique of this day and age. You know, that should just be saying, like, we have people that would see a movie and that would make them want to, you know, shoot up a movie theater or whatever. Like, that is insane, right?
Yeah, like, that is not a critique about the film. That is more of a critique on society. I mean,
that's not the movie's fault. Like, that's the person's fault. That's completely on him, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, art is art, you know. Art has always been and always will be offensive to somebody somewhere at some point in time. You know, no matter what movie you make, I'm pretty sure somewhere out in the world, even the Marvel movies, which are pretty lighthearted for the most part, offend somebody somewhere or trigger them in some way, shape, or form. But that has nothing to do with the movie itself. You know, that has nothing to do with superheroes, you know, bashing on each other. That's more about the way people talk about it. And I have seen those criticisms, and like, there's no way that we can support a movie that promotes this. I'm like, I don't really think you're. Like, it's not trying to promote violence, man. It's just trying to tell a story. And if you're taking movies and you're basing, and people are getting judgment for movies, that's more on you as a person than it is on the movie and the filmmakers.
Right. Personally, I hope that this movie makes so much money. Like, I hope this movie, if this movie crossed $1 billion, that would be the greatest thing in the world. Because even if I don't like this movie, I would like it to make a lot of money. High Top Films, he's a YouTube creator. He tweeted something along those lines where he said, even if I don't like it, I hope it makes a lot of money, because it would be really nice to see it make a lot of money, because that opens the door for more character study films about comic book characters. You know what I mean? That says, hey, this can work. You know, this truly is maybe the first movie of its kind, or one of the first, where it's taking a character from the comics and not really taking anything else from the comics. You know, it says, I know Todd Phillips, the director, said that he took a couple elements from The Killing Joke, but not a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And essentially this is its own creation, and I love that. I would love to see more just raw character studies of these comic book characters that aren't so sensationalized and so huge the way that Endgame is, because like I said, I love Endgame. I love these massive battles, these huge, big superhero films, but I also really like the small stuff, and I would really like to dive into these characters' lives. What made them who they are? Why are they the way that they are? Why do they want the things they want? Why do they do the things they do? You know what I mean? Like, no, I would love to delve into that more and not focus so much on the great battles or the cool costumes. You know, I enjoy just digging more deep into that, you know? So I would love to see this movie make a lot of money.
I want to see it win an Oscar, personally.
Yeah, that would open the door. And from the early reviews, Joaquin Phoenix has a really good shot, I think, at winning Best Actor for it. And who knows, maybe we could see Joker nominated for Best Picture. That would be awesome. It seems to be the type of movie that would deserve it more than Black Panther. Obviously, haven't seen the movie, but
it feels that way.
I think it just feels that way, and it feels like it has the chance to do it. And as much as I loved Taron Egerton in Rocket Man, one of my favorite performances of the year ever, as much as I loved him, the Joker is my favorite character ever. If Joaquin Phoenix does an incredible job, then I'm going to want him as Best Actor, because the Joker is such an awesome character that you can really tap into something that not a lot of characters allow actors to tap into, you know?
No, definitely.
So there's a lot of potential for it. But we're going to move on, because there's potential for another thing too coming up. That's Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. This is a bit of a sharp turn here from the Joker to Star Wars. But I said it again. I said this at the beginning. Not the first teaser, the second teaser for Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. released actually the day that we released our last episode. So it's been a week since this teaser released. So we might be a little late talking about it. We did talk about it a little bit last week, but we're going to talk about it more in depth this week right now. So this whole movie, my initial thoughts. I'm a bigger Star Wars fan than I am anything. I'm a bigger Star Wars fan than Marvel, DC, whatever. Star Wars is my number one thing, right? And I am incredibly hyped for this movie, but the one thing that I first noticed watching this trailer was the cinematography in this movie.
Looks freaking amazing.
Beautiful. It looks so good. I mean, good Lord. There's a shot of Kylo Ren igniting his lightsaber and walking towards the camera, and he drags his lightsaber on the ground, and his lightsaber approaches the camera, and there's lightning going on in the background, and just the way it's framed, it's shot from, like, the ground up, essentially. Just, like, giving him this larger-than-life feel, I think. And that shot alone, I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, just give me 2 hours of that. Repeat. Just give me all that. That's all I need. But this entire trailer was just like great shot after great shot. Just the movie itself looks beautiful. Don't you think?
Oh yeah, no, the film looks amazing. I mean, every shot in the trailer that, is obviously like new, it looks pretty good. And then of course that second to last sequence we see of Kylo and Rey fighting in the middle of water on what looks to be some sort of like ship or something. I don't know what that looks like, but anyways, that looks pretty badass. And I'm excited because
that looks...
if that's the actually... final battle, then the last shot of the trailer must not mean too much.
I don't think that's the final battle.
That's why. I'm like, there's no way that's the end. There's no way they show us the final battle in the end, and there's no way it happens there.
I think, and oh my god, if this happens, I would just... Hell, I might not make it out of the theater. I might just melt in my seat if this happens. But I would love for the final battle to be every Star Wars character from all three trilogies. I mean, you get Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Yoda, everybody in there, every character of note. Anakin, get Hayden Christensen back, Force Ghosts, whatever. Everybody all lining up in this epic battle to go against Emperor Palpatine. That is what I want.
So now, Avengers Endgame with Star Wars.
Yes, that's what I want. And I think that's what we deserve because it's a big finale, It makes sense. Maybe not exactly the way Endgame did it, but I want something along those lines. I would love to see these old characters come back, and they can, and it fits in the narrative now because Palpatine is back, and Palpatine is the character who has seemingly tied in. He's the thread through this entire saga, the prequels, the originals, and now the sequels. He's been in all three. So he is the thread throughout the entire thing. So I would love to see not an epic, not a big battle per se, but just like I would love to see these old characters coming back to team up and fight against Palpatine to end him once and for all. But, one way or another, I'll be happy. Let's talk briefly a little bit about Evil Rey. Or maybe not Evil Rey. Who knows? There are a couple things, and we talked about it last week, but we'll talk a little bit more about it in depth this week because we have seen we've seen what it looks like now. You got Rey. She's standing there. She's in what looks to be a Sith robe, and she's got two lightsabers coming up aside her face, and then it pans out, and she flips the lightsaber on a hinge, and it goes one of the lightsabers, and it rotates down and creates this double-edged lightsaber, like Darth Maul. I remember you said, did you say you think it's a dream sequence?
Yeah, I'm on the boat of there's no way that happens. I'm pretty sure it's either a dream sequence, a vision, something like that. Same thing happened to Luke in the original trilogy. I'm pretty sure we're along the lines of that here.
Okay.
I know you think otherwise.
You know, you guys know that I don't. I think Rey's a Palpatine. I can't shake this theory I've had for the last 3 years. Like, if I get any sort of closure to know whether or not I'm right about this, then I'll be happy. Even if I end up being wrong, like, I just need to know at this point. I've been theorizing this for 3 stinking years. I'm ready to know whether I'm right or not. But I think she turns evil, frankly. I mentioned last week. Should I dive into it?
Yes, just go for it.
Should I go for it? Should I go all out? Okay, I will. So I think Rey's a Palpatine. There are a couple things that lead me to believe this. And part of me, the number one thing that leads me to talk about this and believe it is that I want it to be true so bad. Like, I've wanted Rey to be evil for so long. Like, I just think that would be the coolest flip. Now, if she stays pure and good, then I'll be okay with that too. You know, it seems that's the way her character was going at the end of The Last Jedi. But if she still flipped, I would not be unhappy as long as they did it in the right way in Rise of Skywalker. So that's the number one thing is, like, I just want it to happen because I think it would just be a fun idea to have them flip. But I will say there are a couple things that lead me to believe that she may very well be a Palpatine. So let's okay, three things I'm remembering now. 3 things that lead me to believe it. So in the final battle of The Force Awakens, right, you've got Rey versus Kylo Ren. It's her first time holding the lightsaber, yada yada, whatever. She has him on the ropes, essentially, has him on the ground before the ground like splits, you know, and the fault in the earth happens. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Before that happens, she's got him right there, and she could very well kill him if she wanted. And it doesn't say it in the movie, but in the book version of this movie, in the novel, it says there's a dark voice in her head, one she's never heard before, telling her to kill him and end it and do it. So that's one thing, because that was never really explored in the movie, but it was in the book. So it makes me think, well, maybe it's Palpatine, right? But another thing. There is a move that only she and Palpatine have ever done in Star Wars. There's a lightsaber move that only 2 characters have done, and it's only her and Palpatine. It's hard to explain on a podcast, but essentially they bring the lightsaber overhead. I look really goofy doing it right now, just sitting here. But they bring the lightsaber overhead, and then they slash down, essentially. They have both of their hands over their head, and they slash down. And she does that in The Force Awakens. The only character to do that in the past has been Emperor Palpatine. So that's kind of a reach. But then again, that could be taken from genetically if she's the granddaughter of Palpatine or something like that, her fighting instincts. But the last thing that I think is definitely worth noting, this doesn't narrow it down to Palpatine, but it definitely is, you know, it seems like it could be intentional. So in real life, Daisy Ridley and John Boyega, the actors who play Rey and Finn, they each have British accents. But Finn, the character, has an American accent, whereas Rey, the character, has a British accent. That makes me wonder if that's intentional. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Because Rey has a British accent and Finn does not. So they clearly, Finn has an American accent for a reason, right? Maybe it was just J.J. Abrams heard him with a British accent and said, that's not good, do an American accent. Maybe that's the case. But I want to say that it's for a reason that they kept Daisy Ridley's British accent for Rey. Because you look in the Star Wars lineage, the only two, well, I mean, there have been a couple, but the two prominent figures who have had British accents in Star Wars lore is Emperor Palpatine and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So there is the door open for that she's perhaps Obi-Wan Kenobi's granddaughter, if that happened or whatever. But the only other one is Emperor Palpatine, and it lines up that he would be speaking to her, through her mind during that fight to do it and end it. And then if you look at the way that she fights and the way she acts through both movies, The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, she's very aggressive. She gets angry a lot. There's a part in The Last Jedi where she just screams at, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but she just screams at one of the Praetorian guards in that fight with Kylo Ren.
In the throne room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she just just lets out this growlish, loud scream. And it's aggressive. And the Jedi, the light side, is not aggressive. There's a moment in The Last Jedi when she leaves Luke, when it's in the rain at nighttime, where she nearly kills him.
Yeah.
She lunges at him and then holds back, and he has to back up. So she's got these dark instincts, and I feel like they've hinted at it and hinted at it and hinted at it, but never really fleshed out upon them. So we'll see if they do anything. With it, but she doesn't act like the typical Jedi or the typical light side Force user would.
Go on. Okay.
So it leads me to believe that she has this dark side in her, and of course maybe she balances it, as it seemed like they were going to do in The Last Jedi, and they kind of talked about for a lot in The Last Jedi. So maybe she does balance it. Maybe that ends up being the conclusion. But I can't help but theorize and hope that she is evil, and that if she is evil, she's Emperor Palpatine's granddaughter, because we know that her parents were nobodies, but who were her parents' parents? Maybe her granddad was Palpatine. Who knows? I don't know. That's my theory. I'm gonna take a drink of water. That was a lot of talking.
Yeah, see, I'm still, even after all, I'm still like, oh, that's an interesting theory you have there, but I still don't think they're gonna turn her evil. I mean, I didn't see the theory that maybe she could be possessed by Palpatine's spirit or something like that, and that made more sense to me. But then her to be biologically related to Palpatine, but I don't know. I guess
I could definitely see that too.
I could see that Force spirit possession thing. That could be cool.
Yeah, I could see that happening, especially because there's another shot in the trailer that it was C-3PO with red eyes.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And that was a little how did that happen? And in the comics, which are not canon anymore, but they can take inspiration from, but in the comics, C-3PO does get possessed by Palpatine, and his eyes go red when that happens. So that's definitely a possibility.
No,
there.
man. C-3PO just entered instant kill mode. That's what happens in the movie here.
Yeah. Or he's just smoking marijuana or something. C-3PO's a stoner. Anyways, moving on. On that note, we're gonna rank our top Disney Star Wars films. So this includes starting with The Force Awakens, and then moving on we'll have Rogue One, and then we have The Last Jedi and Solo as well. So we're going to rank those four movies. Now, Raymond, you said you haven't seen Solo.
I haven't, so it's gonna be a top 3 for me. But yeah, I have slacked on seeing Solo.
Well, that is depressing for me because I like Solo. But nevertheless, we will go ahead and rank them. I'll start since you're only doing 3 and I'm doing 4. My number 4, my last, not even last. I wouldn't say I dislike any of the Disney Star Wars movies. There are some I just like more than others. But my number 4 is Rogue One: A Star Wars Story.
That's rough.
No, I don't dislike it. I like the movie a lot. I think it's the first Star Wars movie that actually felt like war, and war is in the title of Star Wars. So
Yes.
I really did appreciate how grounded the movie was. But at the end of the day, I think the only characters who were actually fleshed out and good characters were literally just Jyn Erso. I think Cassian got like a throwaway line that fleshed out his character, but other than that, that was all he got. And then really nobody else. I love K2SO as comic relief. He was super funny. But overall, I think the characters were a big flaw in this film. It did deliver the greatest Darth Vader scene ever, and maybe the best Darth Vader, or maybe one of the best scenes in all of Star Wars, with Darth Vader in that hallway. So I did definitely like that a lot. But overall, I think it could have been better. But I do really like the movie. I don't dislike it by any means. I enjoy it a whole lot. So that's my number 4. What's your
Gotcha.
number 3?
My number 3 is The Last Jedi. Oh my god. I mean, you know my disdain towards this movie, and I will go further into that when we build up to the release of The Rise of Skywalker. But, oh man, The Last Jedi, I'll give it to them. The one thing I do appreciate about this movie is their cinematography and their acting for the most part. Mark Hamill, like, when he originally played Luke in the original trilogy, I was like, oh man, like this dude, he's not the greatest. But then seeing him in here, I'm like, wow, you've really improved over the years. Like, I'm proud of you, man. But aside, yeah, there's a lot of decisions that the story went, and I don't think it's even that the fact that the decisions were made, because that's just a part of storytelling. You can't expect for things to happen and say it's bad because those things didn't happen. Like, I some of the decisions they made, I'm like, okay, that's sort of makes sense. But then what got to me is just the way they executed them. This is minus the prequel trilogy, this is the first time in a while I can say, wow, some of those scenes were really, really corny. But yeah, that's my beef with The Last Jedi. So it rings pretty low, even in the grander scheme of Star Wars for me. But I digress. What is your number 3?
My number 3 is also Star Wars: The Last Jedi. When I first got out of this movie, I loved it, and then as time went on, it aged horribly for me. I think this movie aged worse than any movie has for me, where as time has gone on, I've just disliked it more and more and seen more and more flaws in it.
Yeah.
Because when I got out of the theater, I was like, you guys are crazy. That was the greatest movie ever. But now that I think upon it, I see a lot of the complaints. My main complaint with this movie is the Canto Bight storyline with Rose and Finn and this new character DJ, Benicio del Toro's character.
Yes.
What the heck? Like,
yeah,
that,
I was lost for that most part.
That sucked.
Yeah.
That just sucked. Frankly, like, there was nothing good about it. Everything else I can deal with for the most part is pretty good. Like, I generally like the rest of the things that happen, but it was just that storyline and the fact that it took up so much time. Like, we spent that time watching them race the horses. The Fathiers is what they're actually called, I think, but the Fathiers. But why? Like, how does that fit in? It irks me a lot, and I hate that Kelly Marie Tran, who plays Rose, I hate that she had to delete her social media and everything because of harassment. That, I think, is purely due to ridiculous racist bigots on the internet against her. But her character was just poorly written, and that's just a fact. Like, it has nothing to do with race to say that Rose is the worst character in The Last Jedi.
Oh, yeah, no, by a mile. Like, I mean,
I'll just say that straight up, you know?
I definitely feel bad for her just because, yeah, you never want to be crapped on for work that you do, you know, and it's not her fault that her character is just poorly written in the grand scheme of things. But she definitely didn't deserve to get, you know, crapped on for all over social media. I'm like, come on, guys, like, that's just toxic. Leave her alone, man. But
yeah, no,
but yeah, that was her character, though. Yeah, that was brutal to watch.
I don't even think that she was necessarily like a bad actress. Like, her performance was good, you know. I think it was just her character is poorly written, and just her character was not only poorly written as a character, but it was also tied to the worst part of the movie in that Canto Bight storyline. So not a lot going for her in that movie. Hopefully she has a better purpose in Rise of Skywalker somehow, but we'll see. What is your number 2?
For me, it's The Force Awakens. I really enjoyed the movie. A big part of me did feel like, did I really just watch the first Star Wars over again with a bigger Death Star? But aside from that, I thought it was really good. I mean, I really enjoyed the nostalgia it had, of course, and I really enjoyed Kylo's character in that one.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed him, obviously, in The Last Jedi, too. Like, he was one of the more redeeming parts of that movie. But I actually really enjoyed Kylo's character from beginning to end. I love the new trio of Rey, Poe, and Finn. And aside from that, the only thing that I had to say was, yeah, I felt like I watched the first Star Wars over again, so that was cool. I mean, of course, it's going to be good. You know, it's kind of like the remake of The Lion King. It's like, it has to be good. It's The Lion King. You know, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, not much to say that I loved about it, or not much to say that I hated about it. But I'm like, oh yeah, it was good. What was your number 2 or 3?
My number 2 is 2.
Yeah, 2. Cool.
We're on my number 2. Yeah, my number 2 is Solo: A Star Wars Story. This movie was really good. I liked it a lot. I was worried for it. I was on the train of, you know, we don't need a Han Solo movie, but what movie do we ever really need? You know, the same debate came up with Toy Story 4. We don't need a Toy Story 4. You didn't need a Toy Story 2 or 3. You know, that is a whole different debate. But I was kind of on the train of, you know what, we don't need a Han Solo movie, but I'm going to give it a chance. Just because we don't need it doesn't mean it won't be good. Same thing with Toy Story 4. Love Toy Story 4, and I love Solo: A Star Wars Story. I thought it was really good. Alden Ehrenreich, question mark,
how you say that?
however you say his name. I really liked him as Han. I didn't love him as Han, you know. I wasn't... you know, he obviously was no Harrison Ford, and he did a good job of not trying to imitate Harrison Ford. He wasn't necessarily like, oh my god, that was such a great performance. Whereas I think if they had cast a different actor, maybe they would have had a bigger hit on their hands. But he wasn't spectacular, but he wasn't bad. He was good enough, you know.
Yeah.
But then you look at Donald Glover as Lando. That was a dream come true for me. Paul Bettany's character was really good, as well as Kira, Emilia Clarke's character. I loved Kira in this movie. I really would like to see her more. I know there have been rumors that she's going to get maybe a Disney Plus series or something along the lines of that in the future, because, good Lord, this movie wanted a sequel. The world building that they teased, and I mean, I know you didn't see it, but they set up for a sequel really well, and I was ready for a sequel. I wanted a sequel because of some of the things that they teased. It's unfortunate that it failed in the box office and got overshadowed in the end by Avengers Infinity War, which released around the same time in the same month. But I really liked this movie. I'm still sad that we're not getting a sequel to it, but you know what? It's okay. I'll live without it. But I like this movie a lot. Yeah, that's my number 2 Disney Star Wars film. Obviously, there's only one left. Your number 1.
Rogue One, man. I mean, that movie was amazing for me. While I do see your point with the lack of character building, I felt like in this case it was excusable just because where our focus was on Jyn and her mission, and I really enjoyed it. And of course, knowing my taste in movies, I enjoyed the darker aesthetic of the movie and the cinematography in it. I know this is going to sound really bad, but one thing that really gets to me is Darth Vader's pun in the middle of the movie when he chokes out the Admiral and he goes, "Don't choke on your admirations." I was like, did Darth Vader really just make a pun? That's amazing. But
that's so Vader. You know,
it
is.
He
would say that. It makes sense. It fits.
It's like, oh wow, so Anakin still is in there after all. But anyways, I also really enjoyed not just the last Darth Vader sequence where he's just mowing through rebels, but I really enjoyed watching the planet get destroyed just because, one, you know, there are a lot of movies I feel like where they lose their stakes just for the sake of either A, a happy ending, or B, something that gives you a little bit of hope in the end. But no, all of them got destroyed. And it's funny because when I went to go see the movie, I didn't see it opening night. I saw it like the night after, and my friend said, "Spoiler alert, everybody dies." And I was like, "Ah ha ha ha, you're hilarious." And then I watched it, I was like, "Oh man, everybody died." And I don't know, for me, that's what I really loved about it, because you're right. It did feel like a war movie finally. And it felt like, and it finally added weight to that line from the first Star Wars. You know, many soldiers like died trying to deliver us this information. And I really, that I really appreciated. And yeah, there's not enough good things I can say about that movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I could see why it would bother you, you know, as to why some of the characters aren't as built like Cassian. But, and of course, the blind dude, I'm one with the Force and the Force is with me. That dude was awesome. Like, yeah, I loved him. And then the other, his homie with the what do you call it, fire thing, and I don't know, that part was cool. But aside from that, there's really not a lot of bad things I can say about the movie. I enjoyed it a lot, and obviously, your number 1 is The Force Awakens.
Yes, my number 1 is The Force Awakens. This is a theater experience I'll never forget. There are a few movies that when you see it in theaters, it's just a really special experience. And seeing Star Wars back in the big screen like that was such a big deal for me at the time. Like I'll never forget the first time I watched The Force Awakens in theaters. It was a special experience for me. Feel the same way about The Last Jedi for different reasons. Even though I ended up not loving the movie as much, that theater experience is one I'll never forget because it marked a big point in my life. But The Force Awakens is a movie that is very near and dear to my heart because it's my not my generation of Star Wars, but it's more close to me than A New Hope will probably ever be. You know, the original Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And that's not because it's a better movie or a worse movie per se. That's just because it's the one that I feel more tied to because of in the moment that I saw it and because it was in my lifetime. You know what I mean? So it is a movie that I am very close to and a movie that I really hold close to my heart, like I said. But beyond that, I do think it is a really, really good movie. I think it's the best the best Star Wars movie that Disney's produced. Kylo Ren is my favorite Star Wars character of all time. I love his depth, and I love Adam Driver's performance. I love the introduction of Rey. The score is incredible. John Williams is brilliant, as always. I really just... The entire movie, and I understood the complaints of it was just Star Wars, the original Star Wars, all over again with a bigger Death Star. I understood that, and I think that was intentional. Like, I think that they wanted to mirror the original in a way that the Phantom Menace, didn't, so to speak. Because they're starting this new trilogy and they want to mirror the original without copying it. I do think they may have mirrored it a little bit too much in terms of plot.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a map in a droid and all this stuff, But that being said, I think that it was enough. They deviated enough from the original that I still love it, and I still think it is unique on its own, if not as unique as I maybe would like for it to be. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I really love The Force Awakens. That's my number one Disney produced Star Wars movie. But it looks like we are out of time for the day. So if you have listened to this and enjoyed it, make sure you leave us a thumbs up or a 5-star rating, whatever qualifies as a like on whatever streaming service you're listening on. If you want to follow me on Twitter, my username is @PrestonCMoore. Raymond is @Arvinya, RVINYAH. If you want to follow the website that we work on, that is @thecinemaspot.com with a "the" in front, or @thecinemaspot on Twitter. We both work very hard on that as well. But thank you for listening. Next week, we will have a lot of good stuff to talk about. It Chapter 2 is releasing this upcoming weekend. We're very excited to talk about that. I know I am for sure. But we're excited to dive into that. What may be the biggest horror release in a very long time. So we're very excited to dig into that. That being said, we've reached the end. Thank you for listening. Like I said, if you like this, make sure you leave us a like. We really appreciate it. That helps us out. Make sure you share us to your friends if you're listening and you have a friend who likes movies that you think would like this podcast. Make sure you let them know that we exist. Thank you for listening, though. We'll see you next week to talk about It Chapter 2.
Thanks, y'all. See you next week.